Hello, BookTube. I actually succeeded. Don't think any of you were in much doubt. I was. But I had, for those of you who are brand new to the ongoing circus here, the show that never ends, I had a crushing deadline imposed on me out of the blue. A deadline that I knew about, but I expected it to be far in the distance. Instead, it was drastically moved forward. Uh, One might even say irrationally moved forward. I can't imagine many other people being able to deal with it, and I didn't originally think that I would be able to deal with it. But I did. I did. Today was the day. Today is done. I am in the clear, and not only am I in the clear, but it was good, solid, readable work. Uh, so I got an email first thing this morning from an old friend of mine who runs a church here in Boston, and I couldn't help but crow. Couldn't help but crow to him that I have succeeded. I have completely succeeded. I was not defeated by this weird deadline out of nowhere, and I don't expect any others. This is 2 in 3 weeks, so I'm hoping that nothing else. I'm hoping that it's smooth sailing for the rest of February, at least. But uh, he wrote back right away and said, well, aren't you insufferable? He's right. I am when I'm like this. When I do something that I know perfectly, I know a whole lot of writers, and I don't know anyone who could do what I just did. So when I do that, I do tend to get a little bit insufferable. And he invited me over, just very briefly, to get a car. I'll send a car over there. We'll come on over. We'll chat about it for a bit. And also, there are a ton of books, because his parishioners know to just drop off books. That's a place where they can bring books, and a lot of people want that. A lot of people want that. They don't always think about going on eBay and selling things or whatnot. They just want a place where they can get rid of books, where they feel like they'll be well taken care of. There's something very comforting about bringing books to a church. It feels like a bookish place. So I went, and we chatted, and he offered me the use of the car to bring things back. He offered me a driver, his sacristan, who is a good friend of mine. And he offered me the free run of the books. He doesn't have a book sale anymore, so these books are just piling up. He keeps them nice and neat, but there are lots of them. Our talk was a little bit annoying. At times, it was a little bit annoying, because when I was tooting my own horn, I was crowing about how much I got done in how little time, while still being able to run errands, dote and walk and treat with my baby Bean, and also talk with my imaginary booktube friends. I didn't stop making videos. When I was talking all about that, he at one point broke out his usual rigmarole and said, well, praise God. And I said, God didn't help me to make this deadline. He was nowhere to be found. He wasn't helping at all. I made this deadline. And my friend looked at me and said, well, you said yourself many times in this conversation that the only reason you were able to make this deadline is because you're something of a freak. And I said, that's right. I did all that. And he said, well, God made you a freak. And I went, don't you go that route. He did not. And he smiled and he said, God knew you were going to point at me just then. I said to him, what is it with you Catholics? Just because I ran with you for 50 years, you think you still own me? Anyway, we managed to part as friends, especially since he was giving me my free run of hundreds and hundreds of books, and a handsome, muscular young man to drive me back here so that I didn't have to lug anything. So I got a stack of books. It's the long and the short of it here. And I feel like they were free, but I feel like I was owed them. Like the universe or the Catholic God owed them to me, because I managed to get my deadline done. It did not beat me. There was a moment there, maybe a week ago, when I thought it might, but it did not. It did not. I finished with time to spare. So I want to show you these books. And the first one I actually had to reinforce because it was in really terrible shape. Now it can be read. And I only got it because I like this particular edition. So when I see them, especially for free, I grab them. And I have said many times on this channel in very dismissive tones that I don't care about what books actually look like. I'm not a collector at all. And Mark Richardson has complacently told me many times, yes, you are. Just because you're not collecting for value doesn't mean you're not collecting. Everybody has preferences. And I do. I'm perfectly willing to admit it. And it's these old Bantam classics from a very particular part in their career when they had white spines, the logo up at the top, and attractively evocative cover designs. Some of you will know this period. I have lots of these. I would like a lot more. I'd love the War and Peace from this particular period. I never see it. But I found Wuthering Heights. This is what I'm talking about. That's what they look like. With this type font, all in heavy black letters, and the white spine, and then the artwork on the cover. And there's a brooding cover for Wuthering Heights. This was kind of falling apart. These weren't meant to be read 50 years after they came out. But I will gladly add this to my shelf of those. I will make room for it. Then the next one is a UK mass market. I've mentioned many times on this channel that I am a fan of UK trade paperbacks. UK mass markets do it for me too, and I've never seen this before. No idea that this existed. This is C.J. Sansom. This is Dark Fire. I think this is the second book in his series of the Tudor historical fiction, The Adventures of Matthew Shardlake, a lawyer connected with the household and later the intimate fate of Catherine Parr, the last of Henry VIII's wives. Shardlake is a great character. He is steadily growing a cast of supporting characters. That cast is growing in this novel. I haven't read Dark Fire in quite some time. I have the ebook, so I didn't technically need to get this at all, but I will gladly stick this on the shelf with the other mass market paperbacks in lieu of March Mystery Madness, which is coming right up. March is coming right up. Same thing with these next two. They're both murder mysteries. This is a series that I love, even though it has huge drawbacks for me. And it's also a set that I love. Talk about collecting. These old green mass market paperbacks from Penguin of Jane Langton's Homer Kelly mysteries. There's a whole shelf of them that I had once upon a time, and I got rid of them, and I shouldn't have, because they're lovely things. I got Murder at the Gardner, which is about crime at Boston's Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. These are all Boston related, or Nantucket, or Amherst for Emily Dickinson. And the other one is Divine Inspiration, which I'll need to fix it a little because the cover's a little bit creased. And these have illustrations by Jane Langton running all throughout. Not just a couple. They run all throughout the book. Let's see here. Let me get you one. Oh my, look at that. That is the Boston Public Library. The old building of the Boston Public Library. You come in the street level down there, you come up the stairs between these two Civil War lions. There's one there and one over here. And you go up to this landing, past some of them, the ugliest frescoes anywhere in human existence, to the second landing there where those two people are talking. And the doors on the opposite side of that landing are Bates Hall. It's one of my favorite places in Boston. In an alternate reality in which I had self-sufficient cats here, didn't need me all the time. They perfectly happy to hang out in the sun or whatnot. Didn't miss me when I was gone that much. I would spend 4 or 5 hours a day at Bates Hall. I would go there absolutely every day at the library. Especially Bates Hall is it's connected to a really good research library. I might be able to make use of that for reviewing and whatnot. But there's something I don't need to tell you. I'm sure you already know. There's something particularly nice about doing solitary work in company of strangers. Whether it's at a cafe, I have a friend who just found a neighborhood place that he can go, and he will go there, even though he's perfectly free to do his work in his house. Whether it's a cafe, whether it's a Starbucks, or whether it's a library. There's something really nice about that. I recognize that. I feel that way myself, and I miss it. There's no option. There's no possibility of it now. I couldn't possibly justify going there, going someplace to do work that I can do here while I have someone here who is miserable when I'm gone, who likes to be just this close, not any much further than that. And when I'm gone is missing me the whole time, and I'm missing her. So it doesn't work now. It has to be an alternate reality. It can't be my current reality. But even so, in an alternate reality, in a daydream, I go to Bates Hall. I have many times before in my life. It may happen with Frida. It's possible that when she's 2 or 3 years older, she is going to want to sleep all day and not really be bothered by whether or not I'm present. She'll be happy to see me, but she'll be sleeping so deeply that she won't notice when I'm not there. That happened with my girls before Frida. It happened with my boys before them. There has been steadily in my life periods where I had long stretches of time where I was free to go to a library during the day. I don't know if that will happen. I can't imagine it right now. We're really sort of attached to each other. But if it does happen, I will go back to Bates Hall. But this has all sorts of Boston land. Oh, look at that! There's a drawing of the on the Commonwealth Mall. There are statues to Boston luminaries, and one of them is Samuel Eliot Morison. That's the Samuel Eliot Morison statue. These are two of. There's the gardener. Jane Langton's drawings actually get better with each book. I have two of these now, but there are 6 or 7 others that I don't have. But I grabbed these because they're free. They'll start me off. Then we have a couple of trade paperbacks, and the first one is an author whose life story is as interesting as anything that he wrote about. He's a historical novelist named James Alexander Thom. And he's gone. I believe he's completely out of print. I don't know that he'll be back in print. I think his books are fascinating. I love revisiting. I found one years ago up in Vermont. And I found another one today, From Sea to Shining Sea, which is the story of the Allen family, the Clark family, of Lewis and Clark fame. Eventually they become of Lewis and Clark fame. This is the story of many generations of theirs. And is that this has... if I remember, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to find it off the top of my head. There's a great scene in here. There are many great scenes in here. These books are absolutely fantastic. I cannot recommend them strongly enough. But there's a scene in here, I think I know exactly where it is, where one of the older characters goes on a little tirade. He's a steady tirade against novels. Doesn't like them at all. Novels will make ye silly. Life's not like novels. But eventually he does say, but one night he had drunk more than usual, and his eyes were sad, and he had more to say. He gave his usual tirade against novels, but then he went on. If my life had been like a novel, it would have ended in the spring of '79. Those happiest of my days. That's the way novels end. I've seen a few of them, looked at them till I flang them down in disgust. A novel would have ended me right there. Victory, without one soldier's death on my conscience. All the Indians quiet, spring a-comin' and me sailing round the Mississippi to see my good friend, the Spanish governor, and my beauteous sweetheart larks, and bluebirds singing all about. Sunlight on the river, Frenchmen serenading at their oars, me looking forward to an easy capture of Detroit. Aye, that's how a novel would have ended me. But, he scowled and shook a big forefinger. Lives don't stop at a nice place like novels do. Lives go mucking right along till all the glory's gone. There's always another battle. Friends and brothers and cousins die and get killed useless like. Government never sends what you need. All your allies go in debt or get bitter. Your friends, the Spaniard dies, and your poor orphan sweetheart's sent back to Spain while you're far away chasing Shawnees. And little perorations like that run throughout. It's just, Thom, the author, led a fascinating life, just fascinating, and had a very scrupulous, exacting vision of what he was as a writer, of his nature as a writer. My regret about this thing, I mean, I'll reinforce it, but my regret is that it won't take more than one reading. Even if I reinforce it, it's just not sturdy enough. But I never see these things. In the larger size. The mass markets are unreadable. The print is just too small, and the binding is just too bad. So you need it in either trade paperback or hardcover, but I shudder to think. I know it's been a recurring theme on my videos lately that I'm holding up, pearls of great price, but a hardcover first edition of this book, I shudder to think what it would cost. Unless it's $2. Maybe it has no value at all, but I'd be willing to bet that it's well over $100. And unless I find something like that, I'm stuck with these trade paperbacks, and it was free. After all. Then we have a gigantic fantasy novel. So, a far cry from February Fantasy Stories, FFS, an ongoing event that I am part of, although you'd never know it from how I've been collecting it, because I've been buried under a deadline. But I thought maybe this thing would work for March of the Mammoths, which is coming up, which is a celebration, an urge for you to read books of 800 pages or more. So I automatically checked, and this thing tops out at 773 pages. And I don't want to get yelled at by the cash. So this won't count, but I'll read it anyway. I don't think I've ever seen it before. It's by Tyler Whitesides, and it's 1,000 Deaths of Ardor Ben. Liar, thief, legend. There's I presume our main character on some sort of skull. Let's see here. When a priest hires him for the most daring stunt yet, Ardor knows he'll need more than quick wit and sleight of hand. Assembling a dream team of forgers, disguisers, schemers, and thieves, He sets out to steal the most powerful king in the realm has ever known. But it soon becomes clear that there's more at stake than fame and glory. Ard and his team might just be the last hope for human civilization. I might point out here that for the human larynx, saying Ard is actually harder than saying Arder. So you're abbreviating, sure, but it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous abbreviation. This is a big thing. It's in epic fantasy. I'm always up for those. I don't think I've ever read it before. And then we have a few hardcovers to round out this celebratory. I think I know that I've had 2 of these hardcovers. So I think I've had all 3. The first one is by Colin Tudge. It's just called The Bird, and it's about birds. It's about their natural history, their place in human society, their place in the human imagination. I feel certain that I got this, maybe hauled it on this channel years and years ago. Certainly read it, maybe reviewed it. I feel certain that I did. Although I just noticed that somewhere in this book's travels was a tattered cover. There's a bookmark to keep. Huh? The books are humanity in print, says Barbara Tuchman on the cover. So this is another bird book. I have endless amounts of bird books that I find them endlessly fascinating. And then we'll end up with 2 biographies that I know I've had. I'm pretty sure I've shown them both on this channel many times. And I'm pretty sure that I've reviewed both of them. The first one is a life by Carolyn Fraser of Laura Ingalls Wilder called Prairie Fires. I don't think, I did a cursory glance, but I don't think I have this at all. I don't think I have the hardcover. I think I'm blurbed on the paperback, and I don't think I have that either. It's tremendously good. Just a tremendously good biography of an author that everybody's read, but people don't know that much about. And then the last thing here, I had to grab it. I know that I have had it. I got the advanced copy from the publisher. I got the finished copy from the publisher. And I know that I have written about it as well. But it holds an even more special place than that, because this is one of the very first books I ever mentioned on this channel. I believe this is mentioned in my very first video. And it's this. It's by Louisa Thomas, and it's Louisa, a biography of John Quincy Adams' wife. I found it in the hardcover, so I grabbed it, even though I'm pretty sure I'm blurbed on the paperback. And I think in that, if I remember correctly, in that earliest video, the very first video, I think it's a Sunday, a bleak and barren Sunday when I don't have any mail coming. And I think I got a biography of both Adams. I think there was an John Quincy Adams biography in that same haul. I know the John Quincy Adams biography is by Traub, and I know that I'm blurbed on the back of that on the paperback. I know that I am. I found that out in Vermont. I found it in Books A Million, turned it over, and saw my blurb. But I think I'm blurbed on the paperback of this too, which really means that I should have held out for the paperback, because I'd rather have that. I'd rather have both of them together with my blurbs than have both of them in hardcover without. But anyway, that was a celebratory book haul. Totally unnecessary for me to get more books, but I did it anyway, and it was fun to be teased by a Catholic who's still hoping that I will return to the fold. So we have Louisa by Louisa Thomas, a very good biography of Louisa Adams. We have Prairie Fires by Laura Ingalls Wilder. We have The Bird by Colin Tudge, could have been 10 times as long. We have a big, fat, historic, epic fantasy that I know nothing about at all, except that it doesn't qualify for March of the Mammoths. Actually, it does. We have From Sea to Shining Sea by James Alexander Thom, but does this qualify for March of the Mammoths? I wonder. Let's take a wee peek-see. Yes, it does. It's well over 900 pages. This actually qualifies. That might be a fun time to reread it. I haven't read it in a long, long time. And then a bunch of mass-market paperbacks. We have a couple of Jane Langton, the Homer Kelly mysteries. The way that they displease me is that Homer Kelly and his wife are very sketchily conceived. They are not compelling at all. These books are clearly meant so that the compelling element is the local interest, the local color. The mysteries themselves are not well constructed, and the Kellys as protagonists, he's tall and she henpecks him sometimes. That's all I know about them. I've read 10 books on them. Then we have Darkfire by C.J. Sansom, a book I have had many times, but never in a UK mass market paperback. And finally, this old Bantam classic of Wuthering Heights, which will go right on the shelf with all those other white spine things. Totally unnecessary book haul, but is there any other kind? So I'm going to wrap this up and go back to rejoicing. But I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.